Hello everyone and welcome back to Cute Crochet. My name is Sri and in today's video I am going to show you how to make this beautiful cushion cover. It's so easy to make and it comes along in no time. It's reversible, so you have two different beautiful patterns on either side that you can display, and of course you can make this using any colors you want. So let's get started. The cushion cover is going to be made of a large granny square like this, and our first course of action is to determine how large this piece needs to be, and for that we are going to start by measuring the diagonal of our cushion. As you can see, it's around 19 inches, so the side of our granny square should be a little bit less than that. As you can see, I have tried to make it around 18.5 inches. Next, I am going to show you how to make a granny square. For that, start with your first color and make a magic circle. To do that, wrap your yarn up and over your finger like so, forming a cross in the front. Then, insert your hook underneath the cross, take the yarn from the other side and pull through. Then, yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. And that finishes the magic circle that we are going to work into. Start by making a chain 3. To make a chain, simply yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. Do this 2 more times. This chain 3 will act as your first double crochet and it will also bring you up to the height of the double crochets. Now we are going to make 2 more double crochets into the magic circle. To make a double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into the magic circle and pull up a loop. You will have 3 loops on your hook. Now yarn over and pull through 2. Again yarn over and pull through 2, and that finishes 1 double crochet stitch. Let's do that again. Yarn over, insert your hook into the magic circle and pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Now we have our first shell comprising of 3 double crochets, including that first chain 3. Now we are going to make our first corner, and for that we are going to chain 2. Then we are going to again make one shell, which is 3 double crochets. Now for the second corner, make 2 chains. We are going to have to make shell and then chain 2 more times. Since we are making a 4-sided pattern, we need to have 4 shells in total and 4 corners. Once you finished making the last shell and chain 2, you can cinch the magic circle all the way closed. Make sure that there is no gap remaining in the center. Then slip stitch on top of the third chain of the first chain 3 to join. Then we are going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches and then into the next chain 2 space. I am traveling my yarn to the next corner space even though I am going to be changing colors after this round, simply because it makes weaving in the yarn till much easier. If you want to continue with the same color, you can do that as well, but I will highly recommend changing colors after every round for this pattern. Now I am going to cut the yarn, leaving a little bit of tail for weaving in afterwards, and then I am going to pull the yarn through, and that brings us to the end of round 1. Next, bring in the color you want to use for your second round. Especially for these first few rounds, you can use up any small scrap that you might have remaining. First, wrap your yarn on your crochet hook like so, and then insert your hook into any one of the 4 corners. Personally, I don't like to go into the corner I just fastened off, so I am going to go into the corner just before it and make a slip stitch into it, and that will attach my yarn nicely. Then I am going to chain 3. This will act as our first double crochet. Bring that yarn tail to the back because we are going to work over it, and then make 2 double crochets into that same corner space. This is going to be our first shell for the corner. Now I am going to chain 2 and make one more shell, which is 3 double crochets into that same corner space. This is our first corner comprising of 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, including that first chain 3. Now I am going to directly go into the next corner space and make one more corner stitch. You can make a chain as a spacer in between the two shells, but I prefer not to do that in case of this pattern because it tends to leave larger holes. From here on out, every corner is going to be 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, and the first corner of every round is going to start with a chain 3, which will act as the first double crochet. So basically a corner is shell, chain 2, shell. Here our second corner stitch is also complete. Again, go into the next corner space and make one more corner stitch. A corner stitch is 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. Finally, into that last corner space, make the fourth corner stitch. Then in the end, slip stitch on top of that third chain of the first chain 3 to join. Then travel the yarn to the next corner space by slip stitching on top of each of the stitches and the next corner space. My yarn scrap was barely enough for this. This brings us to the end of round 2. For round 3, bring in your third color and attach it into any one of the 4 corners in the same way as before. I personally like to attach in the corner just before the one we fastened off. Chain 3 to start and then make a beginning corner stitch in that first corner space. A beginning corner stitch is basically chain 3 and then 2 double crochet and then chain 2 and then 3 double crochet. Then we are going to go into the space in between the next 2 shells, which is right here, and we are going to make a shell. A shell is 3 double crochets. Now we are at a corner space again. Into that corner we are going to again make a corner stitch, and I am also going to work over that tail. Make sure that you are working over that tail because that way you will have very few tails remaining in the end. Now we have our second corner. Now in the space in between the next 2 shells we are going to make one more shell. Again into the next chain 2 space make one corner stitch. We are going to repeat making shell and corner all the way around. I'm going to finish this and meet back up with you. Here I finished making the last shell. Now I'm going to slip stitch on top of the third chain of the first chain 3 to join, and then I'm going to travel my yarn to the next corner space by slip stitching on top of each of the stitches and then into that corner space, and then I'm going to fasten off. This brings us to the end of round 3. Then bring in the next color. I'm going to do one more round just to make sure that we get how the pattern is progressing. First, attach your yarn into any one of the 4 corners. I personally like to go into the corner just before the one we fastened off. Then into that first corner space we are going to do chain 3 and then 2 double crochet and then chain 2 and then again 3 double crochet. So a beginning corner. Then in the space between the next 2 shells, make a shell. Again into the next space between the 2 shells, make a shell. Now we have encountered the next corner space, so into it we are going to make a corner stitch. So basically, whenever we encounter a chain 2 space of a corner, we are going to make a corner stitch into it, and whenever we encounter a space between 2 shells, we are going to make a shell into it. That way, the number of shells in between 2 corners will keep increasing as we go along. We are going to keep doing this again and again, round after round, so our granny square will keep increasing until we reach the desired size. Here I am of course going to include all of the colors of the rainbow, but you can use any color scheme that you want to. I am going to finish this and meet back up with you. After your granny square is big enough, we are again going to slip stitch on top of the third chain of the first chain 3. Then slip stitch on top of the remaining stitches and then into the corner space. Then chain 1 and fasten off, leaving a long enough tail to sew up one of the sides of the cushion. Now my granny square should be big enough. I have measured one of the sides and made sure that it is a little bit less than the diagonal of my cushion. But let's just place the cushion in there and make sure. Place the cushion at the center of the granny square diagonally like this, and then pull all the corners of the granny square to the center of the cushion. They should just barely meet. The large gaps in between each of the flaps is completely normal, and this is exactly how it should look. Those gaps will close up once we sew it. Then flip the square over to the wrong side and then fold all the corners to the center. Now I am going to first sew along these 2 edges. To sew up the first stitch, we are going to use the yarn tail that we had left. Go in through the corner space of 2 of the corners and then bring the yarn through. Then we are going to make slip stitches into the back loops of the stitches. Go in through the back loop of one stitch and then the corresponding stitch on the other side and make a slip stitch through them, and continue repeating this all the way across into all of the stitches. This will create a nice flat seam. Make sure that the tension on your yarn is not too tight when you're doing this. Here I have almost finished sewing all the way across. I am going to then chain 1 and fasten off, leaving a long enough tail to even. Next we are going to sew along this edge, and for that we are going to need another new strand of yarn. Take your yarn and make a slip knot. Then in the same way as before, insert your crochet hook through 2 of the corners like so and make a slip stitch. Then continue to make slip stitches into the back loops of all of the remaining stitches in the exact same way as before. I'm going to finish doing this and meet back up with you. Here I finished sewing two of the edges. You should sort of have an envelope shape like this. Now it's time to insert the pillow form into the cover. Once you have the pillow in there, it's time to sew up the other two edges. I'm going to do this using only one strand of yarn, and when we have to wash the pillow cover, we can simply undo this one edge and then take the pillow form out and wash it. Again, make a slip knot and then insert your crochet hook into the back loops of two of the stitches on one of the corners, like so. Then continue to make slip stitches into the back loops of all of the stitches until you reach the middle. I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to meet back up with you. Here I'm at the middle, so I'm going to that corner and the corner directly opposite to it, and then I'm taking my yarn tail and pulling it through both of them to make a slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain one just to secure it in place. Then I'm simply going to turn my work and repeat the same thing on this other edge, and then the pillow will be complete. I'm going to finish this and meet back up with you. Here I'm almost at the end. I'm going to place one last slip stitch into the last two stitches, and then I'm going to chain one and fasten up, leaving a little bit of tail, and then I'm going to hide that tail into the pillow. Don't do too good of a job hiding this tail because you will have to undo this edge once in a while. And here is the finished pillow. I hope you guys liked this video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.